Riley, Nique Clifford was the star of Colorado State's NCAA tournament run through February, run through the first part of March. As Colorado State caught fire, he did as well, but he was one of the best players in the country throughout the season. He went through the NBA draft process last year, decided to come back to Colorado State right at the deadline, proved to be a good decision for him. What do we need to know about his game?
Yeah, he's a true point forward, can do a little bit of everything. Like he meant pretty much everything to this Colorado State
Yeah.
team. He's a an awesome ISO scorer, but he can run pick and roll really effectively, find open teammates, kind of passes guys open. Like he would feed their big men just easy looks around the basket. Good defender both on and off ball too. To me, I think he's a really high floor prospect, but I that doesn't mean he has a low ceiling. Like I think there's a
Yeah.
chance he's like all-star level good.
It was really fun watching him because it felt like he had an answer for whoever they were playing. Like if he got matched up with a team who tried to put a bigger defender on him, he's quick enough to go past them. He stretched the court with his shooting. If they tried to put a smaller guard on him, he would be able to get to the lane, kind of body up, use his length and his size because he's got prototypical size too for
Hmm.
like a traditional two in the NBA. You can slide down to the three, he can slide up to the one. Like he does a little bit of everything. And as you mentioned, that was so crucial for Colorado State because he helped elevate everybody else on that roster because of everything he was able to do. That being said, he is somebody who exhausted his college eligibility. If he was a superstar, would have come out before now. So, what are some of the things that have held him back?
Yeah, I would say in terms of even like the weakness, which we'll get into a little, we can flesh out a little bit more. The 3-point percentage against top 100 opponents isn't good. It's only 31%. And I think it's fair to question like, was this season the anomaly or is this closer to who he actually is? Is he just a late bloomer type?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And there are guys who need time to develop into who they become, right? There are guys who need that, and I think you could argue for Nique Clifford being that, given that he started his career at Colorado and couldn't quite break into the mix at Colorado. You could say he needed to take a going from the Pac-12 level at the time when Colorado was there to the Mountain West, needed that step down to break through in that role. But the way he developed from the time he got to Fort Collins to the end was spectacular. And at the end, he was producing against whoever they played, Power
Yeah, that's
Conference
true.
or Mountain West level. It's not like the Mountain West is some bad league anyway. I think that development bodes well. The trick for the NBA, or I guess the question for the NBA, is you have to figure out how much development is left. Because I agree with you. I think the floor is pretty high.
Mhm.
The ceiling could be high, but this could be it too. Like I think that's one of the more interesting things. I don't know exactly where his ceiling is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will say one thing that I would say portends well for the NBA. You hit on it with the size. He has prototypical wing size. He's already strong. He's already like he has an NBA ready frame. But at Colorado State, it didn't really strike me that he had to resort to bully ball a ton. You know, it wasn't
Right.
like he was just more physical, more athletic than everybody. He was more athletic and more physical than most, but I thought his footwork is impeccable. Like the way he gets to that turnaround jumper, he gets to his spots in the mid range. Like he can attack from all over the court, and I think that's what's going to translate. I trust that maybe it'll. I'm sure it'll take some time adjusting to NBA defenses, but I think he can create separation with his footwork, and he just has such good touch, like
Mhm.
from inside the arc, and pretty good shooter as well. To where I think he's just going to find ways to score really in a variety of methods.
One thing that's interesting too with him when he made the switch from Colorado to Colorado State was more of a role player at Colorado, but we saw his rebounding numbers skyrocket at Colorado State and his assist numbers skyrocket at Colorado State. I think role had a lot to do with that,
Hmm.
but also I wonder if there's something too with the level of competition consistently, right? Because the Mountain West has a lot of very good players. There's not a lot of 6'6" versatile wings like Clifford in that league, and he took advantage of all his skill sets in that league.
Yeah, I think that's a fair critique as well. If you're looking at weaknesses, going back to like just wondering, is this the one off because he was 20? I actually don't have his age in front of me. I'm assuming he was 23, considering his fifth year of college, going against like a good league, but one that's not a power conference team. And I think it's a little bit alarming when you look at his NCAA tournament. profile this past year, just how poorly he shot the ball from beyond the arc. And I think that is his swing skill. I think the rebounding will translate. I think the defense will translate. I think he's going to be like pretty good in the mid range, hopefully quickly. But it is like, can he knock down shots from NBA range? Can he do that against better defenders with more length and more athleticism with guys who are going to match up on him more closely?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure. Let's dive into our breakdown here of Nique Clifford. What's your word to describe him?
My word was renaissance.
My word was versatile. I like Renaissance though. It sounds more bougie, a little bit more eloquent.
We
So why
basically had
yeah,
yeah, I
why
was
are we
gonna
going with Renaissance?
because he's a renaissance man. He does everything. Like the same reason why he said versatile.
I mean, he does. He averaged damn near double double last season, almost 19 points, almost 10 boards, 4.5 assists in there as well on 50% shooting. You mentioned the defense for a good portion of the season. Like he's somebody who comes in and I don't know if he's going to check all of the boxes in the NBA, but he's good enough at enough stuff that there's a good chance he checks some boxes.
Mhm.
Which we'll see if that's enough to get him in a rotation and when that is and what kind of role that happens to be. But his ability to do everything again was so crucial to Colorado State. I think it's crucial to his NBA future as well because he's going to be able to find something. I don't know what exactly that thing's going to be, but find something that he can contribute with. With that, do you think he's more likely to hit his floor in the NBA or his ceiling?
I'm gonna go with ceiling. And again, like I said, I don't think it's like superstar potential, but could see him becoming an all-star or fringe all-star one day. And it's really hard for me to overlook what he did this past year, as productive as he was for a team that, like per Bart Torvik, was top 10 in the country. I think eighth defensively for the last month of the season, and Nique was a huge reason for why they were proficient on both sides of the ball.
I'm going ceiling as well. We talked about the floor being incredibly high because how many different things he can do because of what he does defensively and offensively. He's going to find his way on the court because of that. You need playing time to reach your ceiling. You need to give that experience. You need that to grow as a player. If he can get that, I think we see him hit that ceiling. His floor is kind of who he is right now. And I think that's good enough to get to a spot where he's able to get the experience he needs to get better. So give me ceiling as well. I'm glad we're in alignment there. I think you have an interesting team for him, but I want to hear your team first, and then I'll give mine and we'll debate.
I said the Bulls.
I said the Magic.
Okay, let me hear magic.
So the Magic have a good number of guards. They have too many. They're kind of trying to figure out what exactly to do with them. Their front court is relatively set. I know they got Franz Wagner in there as well, but the wing section for Orlando is a little bit short, and they're all offensive minded. There's not a ton of defense there outside of Jalen Suggs. And so if you plug somebody like Nique Clifford into that team where he can give you a little bit of everything, he doesn't need the ball in his hands to be super effective, but he's not going to be a liability on the offensive end. He's going to be a plus defender. Like to me, he's somebody who Magic picking in the middle of the first round, you can plug in there, know you have a solid rotation
Mhm.
piece that doesn't disrupt anything else you're doing.
I like that thought process a lot, especially just watching the Magic in the playoffs. It just felt like they needed more competent players around Paulo.
Yeah.
And I would say that Nique, to me, he seems like a really safe bet to be ready to go from day one, where he's not going to hurt you while he's out there. For me with the Bulls, I picked them just thinking about how they have the 12th pick. I would guess Nique would be available then. I would be really intrigued by pairing him alongside Matas Buzelis as like this versatile
Yeah.
wing duo of the future. And Buzelis, I think, with him being a good bit younger, is still like the upside play who you hope can realize the potential, who has all the defensive tools, who like has the potential to be super versatile. Nique is like the Timu version of that, but he's already realized his potential. So it's like the even though he's would be the rookie, it's almost like a still kind of like a rookie and a vet type situation between
Mhm.
those two. They have their guards set with Kobe White, Josh Giddey. Maybe one of those guys gets moved. I know Kobe White's been involved in trade rumors for forever, but I think like theoretically that could be a nice like perimeter core that
Yeah.
they lean on.
I like that. One thing too with him going to the Magic potentially is I think he fits the timeline of what they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for. it's I know drafting an older player sometimes gets frowned upon in the NBA, but he is 10 months older than Paulo Banchero and like 6 months younger than Franz Wagner. Like from an age standpoint, he's right in the middle there.
Really? I'm actually
Yes.
surprised he's like that he's younger than Franz. And only a year older than Paulo. That actually makes me feel a lot better about just drafting someone who's been in college for that long.
Yeah, again, high floor guy, but from a your timeline standpoint, what you're looking for, I think he fits that well for Orlando. But I think anybody in the middle of the first round, particularly late in the first round too, would be happy with Nique Clifford if he fell to them. Now, projecting out 5 years from now, we're talking about Nique Clifford in 2030. Good Lord. We're talking about Nique Clifford in 2030. Is he an all NBA guy or an all star, starter, bench guy? Has he been relegated to the G League? Or is he doing what we do with the podcast?
I think he's a starter. Yeah, I think he's just a rock solid starter.
I think he's a bench guy. And there are a couple guys who I have like this where it's going to entirely depend on situation.
Hmm.
I could see him being a very key bench guy for a playoff caliber team that finishes out, in a non-play-in spot, top six, or I could see him being a starter for a play-in team. It very much depends on where he ends up and what the system is. I think he's that kind of fringe guy, but
Hmm.
I picked him on the Magic. If you're going to put him on Orlando, like I see him being a very valuable seventh man who provides some lineup versatility and gives you, you know, 24 to 28 minutes a night.
For sure.
All right, superlatives. We very much enjoy doing the superlatives here. We've had a couple of good ones. Nate Clifford is most likely to what from this draft
Be
class?
this be the surprise contender in the rookie of the year race. I feel like that happens like every other year. There's some random old dude who's just productive right away, who goes late lottery or mid to late first round, and it's like Malcolm Brogdon. I guess he was even a second round pick who was in it that one year. Or Jared McCain this past year before the injury.
Mhm.
Someone who's I guess McCain didn't fit like the older archetype, but just a later pick who's just super productive right away that not many people saw coming. So I could see that being the case with Nick.
Mine's a little boring. He's just most likely to be called a glue guy over and over and over and over and over again. You get players who get these tags and it follows them out throughout their career and it gets
Hmm.
beat to death on every single broadcast. I think that's going to be Nate Clifford with glue guy because of how many different things he does. I don't know if he's going to be in a role to get the numbers he needs to be in the rookie of the year race, particularly with Cooper Flag and how good Dallas projects to be, and maybe if Dylan Harper plays a big role for the Spurs. But he's going to be somebody who I think plays a role no matter where he goes and is productive.
I think that's a good one. Let me be clear. When I say rookie of the year discussions, I mean like top three. I expect
Yeah,
Flag
we
to lock that down. Yeah,
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 it people have to make a discussion throughout the year. Cooper Flag's probably going to win it.
yeah,
But you go to NBA.com, you have the ladder where they have the top five or top 10 or what have you.
yeah.
He'll be in that. Yeah.
Jalen Wells, that should have been the one I used, like a Jalen Wells type
There you
guy.
go.
Yep, yep,
I like that. I like that. Well, that might actually end up being a good comp for Nique
yeah.
Clifford. We'll go through worst case here in a second. We talk about ceiling and floor. What's the best case scenario for you for Nique Clifford?
Best case, I went with a different Jalen. Actually, went Jalen Williams from the Thunder, the J Dub, not the other Jalen Williams.
I went with Paul George.
Explain.
If we are going absolute best case scenario, right? Here's a guy who developed into a double caliber guy on the wing who could handle the ball, play make for others, 4.5 assists per game last season. If the shot continues to come along and he just adjusts well to the NBA game and he's put in a position where he can be more of a ball handler, I think that's like, the obviously the top 0.001% of cases, but there's a lot of because he can do everything. Paul George at his peak before his leg snapped in half of the Team USA scrimmage in Vegas could do all of that, right? And so to me, if we're scoping out like the dream scenario, it's Paul George.
Was Fresno State in the Mountain West when he played there?
Yes.
Or were they ever in the WAC? For some
They
reason, I feel
were
like
in
they
the
were in the
WAC. That
WAC.
you talk, I will research Fresno State conference history.
regardless, I like that you tie it in with a guy who came from the Mountain West.
I try, you know.
Yeah, that's I think because people wouldn't have thought Paul George was going to be what he was when I think he was like the 14th pick too, and maybe that's where Nique lands. Maybe it's not as crazy as it sounds. I picked Jalen Williams just because like when I watch both of them play, Williams has a lot of that same like elite footwork, getting to his spots in the mid range, good shooter, can play make as well, good defender, like all those things. It's like they check a lot of boxes. 6'6" self creator, that's fringe all star level. So that, yeah, that's my thought process behind there.
Paul George played in the WAC.
Okay.
His
Well, let's,
last season at Fresno was 2009, 2010. Then joined the Mountain West in 2012.
okay. So he basically played in the Mountain West.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the WAC at that time was essentially half the Mountain West.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
it counts.
he played in the Mountain West.
Yeah. What about worst case?
I said Jarrett Culver.
Yep.
Was that yours too?
Yep.
Let's go. He- my thought process behind that was just like 6'6" point wing who like I thought Neek looked like a great athlete this year. I
Yeah.
wonder with Culver if it's like that athleticism loses a little bit of luster when you like scale that up to the NBA.
Yeah. I still have no idea, honestly, how Jarrett Culver didn't work out.
Same,
Like,
dude. He was so good. He was
if
also a
we,
late bloomer. Like there's a lot.
yeah, if we had done this, I would have thrown up Paul George for Jarrett Culver. I would have sworn he was an all-star by this time, like, 5 years in the league, multi-time all-star by this time in or this point in time. And it just like he just wasn't good enough.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I think that's the way Nique Clifford hits his floor as to the ceiling, is that all the skills that he has, everything that he does at just not a good enough level.
Hmm.
I think he does
I'm
all of
with you.
them at an average to slightly above average level and can get to that point. But there's a chance he doesn't.